Whenever you're ready, David.
Okay, I'd like to call to order this hearing of the 4 Point Channel Landmark District Commission for March 13, 2025. It's 6:05 p.m. And present are Commissioners Umfanor, Rhodey, and myself, Baraducci. So today, the commission will be holding a public hearing to review applications in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, including the March 29, 2023 amendment, extending the supervision of these provisions till March 31, 2025. And we're conducting this meeting online to ensure public access to the deliberations of the 4 Point Channel Landmark District Commission. The public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. The hearing is being recorded. All further conversations between commissioners should be audible to the public in attendance until the hearing has been adjourned. And at this time, we ask if there are any media or elected officials currently on the Zoom call. And if so, raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform and state your name, title, and affiliation. And no one coming through?
No one coming through.
Okay. All right, so then and members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. And I will repeat these instructions again when we open up public comment period. Okay, so the agenda is we have one design review item. We have an administrative review item to read in and vote on, and then staff comments and adjournment. So the first item, or only item rather, is application 25.0646, and this is at 268 Summer Street, and the proposed work is install a new sign mounted to the front facade. So the applicant, if you can introduce yourself and get started.
You should be able to unmute yourself, but if you're having trouble, raise your hand and I'll make sure the right person's unmuted. Assuming it's Andrew. Yep, there we go. All right, Andrew's iPhone 2. Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep. All right, awesome. Go ahead and
about
state
that.
your full name for the record, and go ahead and tell us about your project.
Yep, full name is Andrew Juliano, representing Steinburst, and we're doing a project for Bellman's Jewelers. And you kind of want to know about the proposed sign idea? Is that how it works?
Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead and talk us through your proposed design.
Gotcha. And you guys got a copy of it in front of you just to review?
Yep. We have the sheet that you sent on the screen.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, we kind of went back and forth with a couple different options, trying to find something that was kind of, sleek looking and not too overpowering. So what we landed on was basically the background of the sign will be like a frosted acrylic, and it will have a perimeter, like a small thin perimeter edge lighting, if you will, shining in onto the sign face. So it's not a traditional backlit sign or like a light box or anything like that. It's more like a thin profile, low profile LED perimeter light shining in, and then the letters will just be dimensional, cut acrylic dimensional letters.
Okay.
I don't know if that explains it enough, but I'm happy to, if you have questions or anything like that, happy to expand on.
No, that's fine. I had some questions. I'm looking at the drawing that you have here, and your 48-inch dimension is what? Is that going to be clear acrylic from the sort of burgundy color border to the edge, or is that white?
It's more of a white. So the actual outside of the sign, so let's say that 48 outer dimension, that will be like a fabricated metal box.
Yeah.
Low profile and about 2 inches deep. And then there'll be an acrylic panel that's kind of inset within that, if that makes sense. So the from the red acrylic in will be the acrylic.
Yeah.
The
All right.
white is represented as more of the fabricated box, which houses the LEDs.
All right. Okay, I see.
David, are you wondering, is that painted white? Is that what you were sort of?
Well, I mean, I just didn't know if it was clear or white, because the comment that I'm going to make
Okay.
is that I think it takes up too much space on that column.
Yeah, actually, you know what's interesting you say that? We just this morning I was gonna have Rachel, our designer, redo this. So that column, but I didn't want to stir too many things. That column is actually 5 feet wide. So I wanted to just make a note that this sign is actually going to appear smaller. We just didn't have time to make this adjustment today. The column is 5 feet, and between those two granite horizontal pieces, it's also 5 feet. So if you can imagine, there'll be about 6 or 7 inches all around of exposed brick.
Oh, okay, because
And
that's
again,
where
I'll
the sign is.
resubmit this. I just did not have time to do it today. I felt terrible about it.
Well, that's an important point, because I
Yeah.
was going to say you needed to shrink it so that there would be, so you can read a red brick border evenly around all 4 sides from
And
the.
yes, you certainly will be able to do that. Like I said, it's exactly 5 feet wide. We're proposing a 4 foot. We just errantly rendered it on there larger than it should be. So I'm going to make that tweak tomorrow and resubmit it. But there'll be, like I said, 6 inches of red brick exposed all around on each side and between the granite horizontal bars.
Well, if your sign is 48 and the pillar is 5 feet, that's a total of 6 inches. So there'll be 3 on each side. Is that not what?
No. That's a total of, it's 5 feet wide. The sign's 4 feet. So you'll have 6 inches on each side.
It's a 4-foot sign in a 5-foot column.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you'll have one foot divided sides.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, of course. You have 6 inches on either side. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
no worries.
thinking. All right. So, all right. Well, I think that probably is a good proportion. The sign is big. There's no question about it. It's a 4 foot by 4 foot sign. That's
Yeah.
kind of huge, being at eye level. I mean, I don't know what the other commissioners feel, if they want it, they think it should be shrunk down even more. I think it can be, and still not, still be readable. My only other questions or comments would be, what is exactly on the back side that's going to be touching the brick?
Touching the brick will be a fully enclosed plate aluminum backer of the sign.
All right, so it'll be a big solid plate then.
Correct. And I did notice, if you go left or right down the street, there are some other similar signs in terms of where they're placed, and there is some, there's some noticeable red brick around them. So I wonder if I can talk to Alex, who I'm dealing with, about maybe shrinking this so it's not so much a square, but maybe a rectangle, so you have more breathing room on the top and bottom, because that's how I noticed those other ones on that strip bar.
Yeah, I think so. And then I also think that rather than to have this plate touch the brick, I think if you could put spacers between it and the brick, say about 1/4 of an inch, so that you get some air circulation back there, and it doesn't, you don't want, because otherwise it might stain where the points at which it touches the brick.
Okay, so just don't mount the sign directly on the brick, do some sort of standoff.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
1/4 inch would do it. And then I know I was reading through your notes here, and we always require any penetration of brick with bolting of sorts to be in the mortar joints only, not into any brick face. So
Sure.
you'll have to design it so that the placement of those bolts will be right where a joint is.
Yeah, typically we'd bring like a cardboard pattern out, mark those joints, and then transfer that to the sign, and then put the sign up.
All right, so we wanted to make sure that that's stated somewhere on the drawing, so that's a given.
Yep.
And I think you said, so I think there's what was the K, the reading for the warmth here? I think you had a pretty high number.
I have marked as 3,000 K.
Yeah, I mean, we usually want at least 2,700, right? Isn't that right, Rachel?
Yeah, 2,700.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's,
I can
so
get
if
those
it's
out.
higher, the higher the number, the warmer it is, right? Is that
The
how that works?
lower the
No.
number, the warmer it is.
Correct.
Oh, the lower, so we gotta
Lower is
go,
more of like that
right.
yellowy kind of Edison bulb look, where the brighter, this 8,000 is that bright dentist,
All
right?
right.
they call it.
So we want to make sure that it's then 27 at least or
All right.
lower.
No problem.
Those are okay. Those are my only comments.
If I go back to Alex, would you, so the first thing I'm gonna do is tweak it to show a true 4x4, which will definitely show exposed brick, but do you want me to even go down that route, or do you want me to try to make the whole thing smaller just right out of the chute? You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Should I offer him a 4x4 and the rectangle, or just the smaller rectangle?
I mean, I think it's probably good to see both, just to,
Yeah.
and then I think depending on what the other commissioners feel, they'll weigh in a second. But I think that ultimately, the options would be good to we show the staff so that
Yeah,
a
yeah.
wrinkle should see it, and then ultimately can make the decision. I don't think you would need to come back,
Okay.
but if the others want that, then
Yeah,
that's so. Go
My
ahead.
comment,
Wait,
which I
yeah,
think
go
David's, is that the sign, as it's rendered, occupies too much of the space.
Gotcha.
Now,
Yeah.
you've acknowledged that there's been an error in the rendering. I still think that a 48-inch wide sign in this context with this size lettering is large. And I would just ask you to look at 274, which is the building directly abutting this it would be to the right of this.
Yes, that's the one I did see. I noticed it was a significantly smaller in that area.
Well, I think it's large enough in that
Yeah.
comment there on the perimeter of it, and that's for the Vanderwill
Correct.
company. And so I think it is a square sign. It is on standoffs. It has a lot of similarities to your sign in terms of scale and proportion. I think you should just basically take and adopt the dimensions of that sign.
Okay. That way everything kind of looks cohesive
Yeah,
on
and
that strip there.
these are all part of a column system that is part of a repeating rhythm anyway. And so
Mhm.
if you're using that same geometry, that same proportion, I really don't have a problem with it being square. I think it's actually fine being square. I don't particularly think you should get in the world of the rectangle then not really being the rectangle that is part of the punch and everything. I would just
Okay.
keep it as a square, and I would echo what the Vanderwill sign has, just one door down, because that sign is also a square.
Okay.
So
I can do that.
Is it, David, is that Vanderweel one like roughly 3x3 or?
I don't know the exact
Rough
dimensions of
dimensions.
it. If I were to guess, it would
Yeah,
be
just roughly.
3x3, or maybe a 3-foot 4-inch by 3-foot 4-inch, something like that. I don't
Gotcha.
think it's a
Okay.
4-foot
That's what,
wide column. I mean,
yeah,
4-foot wide
it's,
sign.
you're a fine jeweler. It's, it's definitely a sort of place where understatement kind of speaks louder. So
Yeah.
less being more.
Yeah,
Would be
I would
my
kind of
only-
agree with
my
that
only
too.
point. Yeah, and so 3x3 still kind of a little hefty, but
It is.
doable. And especially if it kind of matches a little bit with one of your neighbors, it sort of makes a little bit of geometric sense, I suppose.
Yeah,
I would
That would be my only.
Andrew, I would just say that size are smaller. And the piece I was going to raise here is, who is this sign really for? Really, the only view corridors to the sign are going to be people on the opposite side of the street and
Yep.
possibly people being dropped off in Ubers, because it will not really be visible from people at that oblique angle coming down Summer Street on the sidewalk. So
Sure.
I'm that is just remembering that we're all sitting here very comfortably looking at a rendering, but this isn't actually a real observation point that's it's going to be used that often. So that's
Right.
comments around 3.
Yeah, even when I went to do a survey, I had trouble finding it because of, it's not like a glaring as you pull up on it. So yeah, like you said, it's more of a destination place too. So a smaller sign I think is fair as well.
Okay. So do we sort of want to settle on 3x3 or?
Well,
smaller
I
or
actually
large,
have notes from my survey of that other sign. So when I get to the office tomorrow, I should be able to, look exactly what that was and just make this rendered to match that.
Okay, great. And
more
then
or less the same. You guys,
David,
you guys good with that?
I'm fine with that. I think we could remand it to staff to either be the same, to make a motion now if the other commissioners are, we're going to open this up public comment, but it seems to me that we want to have the same scale as the Vanderwill sign, but that scale or smaller.
Yep.
And to remand the final approval to staff with the proviso that comments around the standoffs going into the mortar are reflected in the drawing. And I can't remember if there was any other
Light.
point that you had.
No, that was
Sorry.
it.
The light, the 2800, 2700
Oh, the
Kelvin for the color temperature of the lighting.
Gotcha.
Sorry, David. You're
Yeah,
muted.
we'll open it up to public comment now here. All right, members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application. The discussion to do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at fortpointldc@boston.gov. I see two hands up here. So Andrew,
Oh,
I think-
Andrew's the proponent.
Yeah.
oh, that's okay.
And there we go.
So Sarah McCown.
Good evening, Commissioners. Sarah McCammon, Fort Point resident. Just had an observation, agree with all that's been said, and sort of making the sign in line with the other signs on the columns. The Vanderveel sign is a rectangular sign and has quite a bit of space behind it. And it also looks as though, I'm just looking on Google Maps, protrudes a bit, and I was just curious on how much. I couldn't see it in the slide that this sign protrudes from the
I
column.
think it was 2 inches that I saw.
Oh, just that. Okay.
Yeah, it should match the depth of that sign, the Vanderbilt one. And I did think that was a rectangle. I didn't want to go against, because you guys know the area better than me,
I'm
but I was
thinking
pretty
of
sure that is a rectangle.
274. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the actual 274 Summer Street sign, which I believe is a square. When I got
Right,
the
right.
I went out to check this, but the point of it is that it is along its long edge
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
or
All right.
smaller. I agree with Tom's comment that the elegance of the sign is amplified by it being a little bit less a billboard and a little bit more
Mhm.
a
Sure.
style.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Sarah. There are no other comments coming through?
I'm not seeing any other raised hands, and we did not receive any written public comment in
Okay.
regard to this application.
All right. So with that, somebody can form a motion.
I'll motion that we will project with the proviso that remanded to staff approval that the drawing is updated to reflect a 2700 degree Kelvin color temperature, and that the standoffs are to be placed only into the mortar of the and that the maximum dimension is not to exceed the maximum dimension of the 274 summer sign, which is a part of the Vanderweel property, and that can be, either a part of the site visit. We can get that information to staff in some form.
Okay. And can we,
David,
would
you said
add
that the standoff's about a quarter of an inch. Is that what you were
about a
suggesting?
quarter-inch
Yeah.
spacer so that the back of the sign doesn't actually engage the brick? There's a bit of a breathing space there.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Second.
I will second that.
All right. So Commissioner Umfanor,
Yes.
Rhodey,
Votes yes.
and I vote yes. Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
All right, sounds good. I'll have this revised and we'll get it to you either tomorrow or Monday.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Super.
All right. So let's we have the read in here. This is the there was one administrative review. This was an application that came before the staff, and they had approved it in-house with it having adhered to the standards and criteria. So when I read this in, the vote or the motion would be to approve of the staff's approval. And this would be application 25.0661, and this is the Harbor Walk behind 5 NECCO Street regarding install new two-sided map kiosk as required by DEP following the dimensions and color scheme of the Boston Harborwalk Signage Style Guide. So the motion is to accept that acceptance. And do we have a second?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right. So we'll just do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Okay. And let's see, we have any staff updates?
We do not. I will
Public-
hopefully though soon have an update. Technically the virtual hearings expire at the end of this month. So as soon as I know what's gonna happen, I'll let
Yeah.
you guys know as soon as
Okay.
we don't
All
have any.
right.
Is there any hearing minutes from last month or?
There are not, but there will be 2 sets in
Yeah.
April.
Okay, great.
I don't have a sense of it, do you, Rachel? I'm sure you would have shared with us a sense of whether they will extend that or not, but maybe extend it for.
Oh, right, because that will be, yeah, that'll, the decision's supposed to
That'll
be
be a
made.
big change.
Yeah, wow, okay. All right, so we will obviously know what the deal is. So, okay, I'm trying to rush this, sorry, because I gotta get out of here, but do we have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
None. All right, thanks, guys.
Done.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Rachel.
you.
Very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Bye, Rachel.
Rachel.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you
Bye,
guys.
Tom.
Bye.